August 10th, 2016, a quiet night in Subang Jaya is torn by sirens.
Oh my god! What? What? I'm talking to my babies. They're dying. He stabbed me and my children with a knife. And I picked the knife. And my fingerprints are on the knife. Help me. Come. My babies are dying.
Dudu is 6 years old, her sister Didi just 5. They've both been savagely stabbed in their sleep. Dahlia, their mother, is bleeding from a jagged wound on her neck. Detective Rusmira Rahim headed the investigation.
Yeah, I received a call from a dispatch telling me that there had been a couple of girls stabbed along with their mother. They also explained to me that they had one on ground. Well, when you tell an officer that you have one on the ground, that to us is they're chasing someone on foot.
Lieutenant Istifa Zaidi was in charge of the crime scene.
You know, you cannot help but think about walking into that crime scene for the first time and seeing the older sister Dudu laying there on the floor looking up at the ceiling. That is something that you'll never forget.
Dudu is already dead, stabbed twice in the chest, puncturing her heart. Her sister Didi stabbed 6 times through her back, her lung and liver pierced, is still breathing when paramedics arrive. She's rushed to hospital but is dead on arrival. Initially, Dahlia's story is very straightforward. She tells police that it was a hot night and that she and her 2 daughters were sleeping in the living room to try and escape the heat. Her husband Daniel and 8-month-old daughter were upstairs. Dahlia tells officers at the scene that, startled from her sleep, she struggled with an intruder, then chased him through the house. A glass shatters to the floor. He drops a bloody knife on the way, and then the man disappears into the garage. Dahlia's throat has been cut. Her girls have been stabbed. With Dahlia fighting for her life, investigators start combing the house for clues. The best chance they have to catch the killer is to move fast. Erniza Zaihan was the assistant district attorney for the Subang Jaya area.
From the very first moment that we entered the home, it is obvious that the blood evidence will be the key of this case.
The carpet is soaked in blood. There are signs of violent struggle. The trail continues in the kitchen. The murder weapon left behind. A boot print has been preserved in blood. A torn screen is discovered in the garage. A blood-stained sock is found in the alley behind the house. Her 2 oldest daughters are dead, and she is badly wounded. Dr. Nisha Hanif is the chief medical examiner for Subang Jaya.
Okay, what she had was an incised wound or a cut or a slash wound on the right side of the neck that went downwards toward the left side of the neck. She also had a cut in front of the left shoulder, which is a continuation of this wound. Okay, she also had a very deep stab wound on her right forearm, where the blade actually went downward to the bone.
In the days to come, enormous bruises stretching from her wrist to her shoulders would emerge on Dahlia's arms. They are the injuries of a woman who was fighting for her life. Detective Rusmira Rahim is the lead investigator on the case. Hours after the attack, she talks to Dahlia as she recovers in hospital.
So I met Dahlia 4 hours after the incident at the house. I met her in the hospital. She was alert, she was conscious, and she knows exactly what she was saying.
Hello, detective.
Hello, Dahlia. So can you tell me what happened at the house? Please start from the beginning.
I woke up and I saw someone standing over me with a knife in his hands. We struggled, then he just walked off through the kitchen into the utility room. I saw him drop the knife and I picked it up. I probably shouldn't have done that, and I put the knife on the kitchen counter. Then I saw Didi standing in the hallway and Dudu was just lying there. And then I called 911.
It's a slightly different story than she first gave police, and Dahlia can only provide sketchy details of her attacker. He wore black clothes, had bushy hair, and a baseball cap. It's all police have to go on. Armed with Dahlia's statement, police searched for evidence that corroborates Dahlia's story of an intruder. Subang Jaya police call in Hani Dani, a former member of the Subang Jaya Sheriff's Department. Hani Dani is now a forensic identification consultant who's investigated more than 20,000 crime scenes.
The first thing we did in standard step is to do a walkthrough, and that is a very careful step where you do nothing, touch nothing, but except observe the scene.
They begin their investigation in the blood-soaked family room. What they find is a puzzling collection of clues. If Dahlia was attacked while she slept on the couch, why is there hardly any blood on the pillow? The couch below isn't ripped or torn. In the kitchen, shards of broken glass litter the floor.
She had a glass break as the intruder ran through the kitchen. She then followed after the intruder, and yet when we got there and we looked at it, her bloody footprints are underneath the glass that was supposedly broken before she even ran through the kitchen. Now that didn't make any sense.
Even more perplexing, only one bloody footprint is found, but the blood trail ends there. There's no blood at all in the garage. A small collection of Dahlia's jewelry sits on a counter in the kitchen. If this was a robbery, why wasn't it taken? The clues are even more confusing outside the house, beginning with a bloody sock that is discovered in the alley.
We determined that sock actually came from the home, which is because we were able to match some of the fibers on the socks with the tennis shoes that belongs to the husband, Daniel.
The blood on Daniel's sock is eventually matched to that of the two murdered girls. But how did it get there?
Did you notice any boot prints?
Nothing, it was completely unmarked.
And that gate was closed?
That's right, but the hinges are out. It's held together by wire here.
Hani Dani finds no sign of a frantic getaway. If the intruder left through the garage and the bloody sock is in the alley, Hani Dani should be able to find evidence that the intruder came through here, but she can't.
Again, about 30 minutes, and the Subang Jaya police did too, and we felt like there was no intrusion.
So we had to focus on who was in the house, okay? Well, it is obvious that the youngest daughter didn't kill her sister and, stab her mother. But you cannot help but think about the other person that was in the house. That was her husband, Daniel.
Within days of the murder of their two children, both Daniel and Dahlia are brought to the Subanjaya police station. It takes them more than an hour to fill out voluntary statements about what happened the night of the murders. Daniel repeats the version of events he told police at the scene, that he was asleep when he heard Dahlia screaming for help. He rushed downstairs but was too late to save his children. Dahlia's story, though, starts to change.
The next thing I woke up and I felt pressure on me. I felt Didi press on my right shoulder and I heard her cry. This made me really come awake. I ran back through the kitchen and I realized the entire living room had blood all over it, everything. I put the knife back on the counter and I ran to the entrance, turned on the light, and I started screaming for Darren.
It is the most detailed description yet on what happened, and it's not the same story she told Rosmira Rahim at the hospital.
Realized there was a man standing down at my feet walking away from me. Walked after him, heard glass breaking. Ran, turned on the lights. I ran back towards the utility room, realized that there was a big white handheld knife laying on the floor. It was then I realized I had blood all over me and I grabbed the knife thinking, we understand that people are going to change some of their stories, but It might have been black car instead of blue car, that kind of stuff, but you don't change the whole dynamic of it, and that is what she did.
In Dahlia's new version, there is no struggle with the intruder. Dahlia's youngest girl was awake and standing by her shoulder. There are important differences which make investigators take a very close look at the crime scene. Evidence from the house is starting to pour in.
They analyzed everything that they could possibly analyze. They fingerprinted over the entire house. They took the carpet, they took the kitchen sink, and we performed over 100 DNA tests on this case.
If there was a struggle between Dahlia and her intruder, as she first told officers, there should be long thin lines of blood along the ground and the walls. These splatters would have been thrown off as the bleeding Dahlia fought with the intruder. But investigators can't find any such blood splatters. If Dahlia had chased her attacker through the house when she was wounded, she would have left long, thin streaks of blood behind. Blood falling from a moving object, such as someone running, leaves an elongated mark, not a round bloodstain. Investigators can't find any of these marks either. In the utility room where Dahlia says the killer threw the knife down, there is blood, but that too doesn't look like it should.
What we did after the knife had been processed for latent prints and DNA evidence was we got the original knife and brought it back to the house and got 2 units of blood. So we put blood on the knife and we used the same floor and we dropped the knife from different heights to see what type of blood patterns that would leave on it.
We found that we saw a very distinct V-shaped pattern forming every time we dropped the knife in the utility room, and there was no pattern like that when we first got there. And again, this was very disheartening because it's again discouraging because it's pointed towards the Miss Dahlia.
Dahlia indicated to us that she ran through the crime scene, and so we laid out some butcher paper and inked her feet and had her walk, and then we did the same, re-inked her feet and had her run. 20 feet on the butcher paper to see what her stride was, and we were able to look at those footprints in the kitchen, and it was telling us that she walked through the kitchen. What she said was completely different to what our result was. So she wasn't running through the kitchen, and the result was that the footprint shows that she was walking through the floor.
Investigators are also interested that Dahlia's feet have no scratches or cuts. If the intruder had knocked the wine glass on the floor, why hadn't Dahlia stepped on any of the broken glass? An innocent explanation is also found for the only other footprint in the house.
When we walked into the crime scene, what we see was Dahlia's footprints on the shattered glass. The doctor said there is no evidence of blood, wound, and injury on her soles. As you can see on her soles, it is clean and unwounded soles, as if Dahlia didn't step on the shattered glass.
The only bloody shoe print in the kitchen leading to the utility room belonged to one of the first responders.
Rusmira Rahim is growing more and more convinced that after stabbing her own children, Dahlia stabbed herself to make it look like she was attacked. Rusmira Rahim gets a second opinion of Dahlia's injuries from one of the doctors who worked at the hospital.
So doctor, what do you think of her wound? Yeah, she could have done it herself.
So do you think that Dahlia stabbed herself?
No, I'm not saying this wound could have been self-inflicted. So yeah.
One last tiny piece of evidence helps the Subanjaya police make up their mind. What becomes known as knife number 4 is found in the kitchen. It has a tiny fiber clinging to it, a fiber which matches the screen that was cut in the garage. The only way it could get there was if someone inside the house took it, cut the screen, then put it back in the block. Based on the evidence, the police can come to only one conclusion. Dahlia murdered her own children. It's a chilling thought, but the big question now is, why? Saturday, August 13th, 2016. 3 days after their murder, a funeral is held for Dudu and Didi. More than 400 people turn out, but the suspicions of the police are growing. They can't find any traces of an intruder in or around the house.
Personally, I instinctively wanted someone else to be there. I want someone else to be the intruder because at all cases, the last thing I wanted to believe is a mother could have the heart to kill her own daughter.
But the evidence was piling up. The question now was, why? What could have driven Dahlia to commit such a shocking crime? As police learned more, they discovered that the family was having problems.
I think we saw the real Dahlia at the graveside party. You know, I kept thinking as I saw that, I'm a parent. If my child had died a week earlier, would I in any condition to even talk about it? And yet, here's a mother sitting out there, singing, spraying silly string, giving interview without any sort of emotion. It was bizarre, it was despicable, it really makes my stomach turn as I watch her at the graveside.
Is this a damaging portrait of a suicidal woman under severe stress or a mother about to commit murder? And then comes one of the strangest moments of all. August 19th, 8 days after the murders, Dudu would have turned 7. The family decides to hold a long planned birthday party for the young girl at her grave. For 2 hours, it's a somber service, but the most telling moment comes near the end. Prompted by his sister, Dahlia sprays a can of silly string over the grave of her 2 girls. After the graveside ceremony, Rosmira Rahim decides to question Dahlia again. She brings her to the Subang Jaya police station one last time.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good, nice to meet you, madam.
Come, have a seat. So I have a copy of your voluntary statement here. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, that's exactly what happened.
Well, I have a couple of questions to add about this statement. Now you were saying, well, I think you killed Dudu and Didi.
Well, if I did, I don't remember.
Niza ZJ has been doing interrogations for over 20 years. Rosmira Rahim hopes she'll finally be able to get Dahlia to confess. For 3 hours, Niza ZJ grills Dahlia about the facts of the case. 6 times she accuses her directly of killing her children. 5 times she responds,
Well, if I did, I don't remember.
but there's no confession.
In all my years, I have never heard anything that unusual. Here's a woman, a stranger accusing you of killing your own daughters, and your response is, if I did, I didn't remember.
Even without a confession, Rosmira Rahim is convinced her case is solid. She arrests Dahlia for the murder of her 2 daughters.
Dahlia, you are under arrest for murdering 2 daughters.